My wife said, "We can work through this." I replied, "You can work through it alone." Then I filed paperwork, froze our accounts, moved out, and I smiled when her lawyer said she gets nothing. "Hey, Reddit, we can work through this," she said, reaching for my hand across the kitchen table. I pulled back like she'd tried to grab a live wire. "You can work through it alone." Her face went white. Not the pale shock you see in movies, the real kind, where someone realizes they've fundamentally miscalculated their position. That was 3 months ago. Yesterday, I sat in a mahogany-paneled conference room and watched her attorney explain why she was walking away with exactly nothing from our 17-year marriage. I smiled. "I'm 47. Been married since I was 30. We have 2 kids, twin boys, now 15. Until 6 months ago, I thought I had the kind of marriage other people envied. Comfortable house in the suburbs. Good jobs. I'm a senior software architect. She was a hospital administrator. Date nights. Family vacations. The whole package." The first crack appeared on a Tuesday. I came home early because a client meeting got canceled. Found her laptop open on the dining room table, still logged into her messages. I wasn't snooping. The screen was just there, glowing at me while I set down my keys. The preview text said, "Can't wait to feel you again." My stomach dropped before my brain could catch up. I sat down, opened the conversation, scrolled up. The messages went back 14 months. 14 months of missing you, and tonight was incredible, and explicit photos I will never be able to unsee. Not of her, of him. Some guy named Trevor who worked in hospital IT. Trevor. Even his name sounded like a punchline. I took screenshots. Lots of them. Sent them to myself. Closed the laptop exactly how I'd found it. Then I went upstairs, unpacked my laptop bag, came back down, and made dinner like nothing had happened. She got home at 6:30. Kissed my cheek. Asked about my day. I said it was fine. Asked about hers. She said it was exhausting. Something about budget reviews. We ate pasta with the boys, watched them argue about some video game strategy, and went to bed. I didn't sleep. Just stared at the ceiling while she breathed steadily beside me, probably dreaming about Trevor's mediocre IT skills. The next morning, I called my college roommate David. He's a divorce attorney, one of the best in the state. I'd been to his office for Christmas parties. Never thought I'd be calling about my own marriage. "Don't confront her yet," he said after I explained everything. "Don't tip your hand. We need financial documentation first. Bank statements, investment accounts, property deeds, everything." "You said she's the one who handles most of the household finances?" "Yeah. She always said she was better at that stuff." "Then we need to see exactly what that stuff looks like. Give me everything you can access." Quietly, I spent the next 2 weeks becoming an expert in our financial life. Turned out I'd been sleepwalking through my own marriage in more ways than one. We had 7 different accounts I barely knew existed. She'd opened 3 credit cards in both our names, maxed out 2 of them. There was a personal loan for $35,000 I'd never heard about. And our retirement accounts, which should have had close to $800,000 combined, were sitting at just over $400,000. Where did it go? I asked David over coffee. He slid a paper across the table. "Best guess? She's been funding a lifestyle you weren't part of. Look at these charges: luxury hotel rooms, expensive restaurants, shopping. None of it lines up with what you've told me about your normal routine." I stared at the list. Ritz-Carlton, 4 times. Morton Steakhouse, 6 times. Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Tiffany & Company. Charges spreading back almost 2 years. She was building a whole separate life? I said. Yes. And based on these cash withdrawals, probably giving him money too. We found something else. She's been transferring money to an account in her name only. About $4,000 a month for the last year. My hands were shaking. I set down my coffee before I spilled it. "Here's what we're going to do," David said. "We're going to freeze everything legally accessible to you. Your paycheck, any accounts in your name, joint accounts where you have authority. We'll document everything, file for divorce on grounds of adultery. Your state still considers that an asset division, and we're going to move fast. She won't know what hit her. What about the boys? They're 15, old enough that the court will consider their preference on custody. But this is about protecting your financial future and making sure she doesn't drain anything else before we can stop her. I nodded. Couldn't speak. Just nodded. The next week, I started moving money. Not hiding it. David was very clear about that. Just protecting what was legitimately mine. I opened a new checking account at a different bank. Had my paycheck redirected. Transferred my half of our joint savings into my name only. Completely legal since it was a joint account. Moved my retirement funds to a new custodian. Then I started copying documents. Every statement, every bill, every piece of paper that showed where our money had gone. I took photos of her laptop screen when she left it open. Recorded timestamps of when she said she was working late. Built a timeline of her affair that would have made a federal prosecutor proud. She didn't notice anything. Why would she? I was still playing the part of the comfortable husband. Still making dinner, still asking about her day, still sleeping in the same bed. It was the longest performance of my life. 3 weeks after finding those messages, I was ready. I waited until she got home from work. The boys were at soccer practice. I'd made sure of that. She walked in, set down her purse, and I was standing in the kitchen with printed copies of her messages spread across the counter like a crime scene. "What's this?" she asked. But her voice already knew. "You tell me," I said. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been screwing someone from IT for over a year while spending our retirement fund on hotel rooms." Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I can explain." "Don't. I've had 3 weeks to look at the evidence. You've been lying to my face, stealing from our family, and planning God knows what kind of exit strategy with money that was supposed to secure our kids' futures. It's not like that. It's exactly like that. I have every message, every photo, every receipt. I know about the separate account. I know about the loan. I know everything." She sat down heavily in one of the kitchen chairs. "It was a mistake. A huge mistake. But we can fix this. We can work through this." That's when I said it. "You can work through it alone." Her head snapped up. "What?" "I filed for divorce yesterday. You'll be served tomorrow at work. Sorry about that. But it was the only address my attorney could verify you'd definitely be at. All joint accounts are frozen pending the court's division order. I've moved my paycheck and my personal funds to accounts you can't access. I've documented every dollar you stole and every lie you told. You can't. This is my house too. Actually, funny story about that. Remember when we refinanced 8 years ago? You were busy with that hospital merger. Said you trusted me to handle the paperwork. I handled it. The house is in my name only. Has been for 8 years. That wasn't entirely true. The house was in both our names. But her expression of pure panic was worth the bluff. The boys will make their own choice about custody. They're old enough. And when they find out what you did, I'm pretty confident about which parent they'll choose to live with." She started crying. "Please. We've been together 17 years. That has to mean something." It did mean something. Past tense. You chose Trevor and Tiffany and company over us. Now you get to live with that choice. I walked upstairs, grabbed the suitcase I'd already packed, and left. Stayed at a hotel that night. The next morning, I signed a lease on a 2-bedroom apartment 15 minutes away. Close enough for the boys to have easy access, far enough that I never had to see her unless absolutely necessary. The process server found her at the hospital the next afternoon. I know because she called me 17 times in 20 minutes. I didn't answer. She sent texts ranging from apologetic to furious to desperate. I blocked her number and told my attorney to handle all communication. The boys called me that night. "Dad, what's going on?" "Mom's freaking out." I met them at a coffee shop. Told them everything. Age-appropriate version, but honest. Showed them some of the financial documents. Explained that their mother had been unfaithful and had hidden massive debts. "Where are you staying?" my son Christopher asked. "Got an apartment. 2 bedrooms. You guys can stay whenever you want." "Can we stay tonight?" his brother Michael said. They never went back except to get their stuff. My wife, ex-wife, I should start saying, tried everything. She showed up at my office. Security escorted her out. She tried to access our joint accounts and discovered they were frozen. She called David's office demanding to speak to me. He told her all communication needed to be in writing through legal channels. She hired an attorney, some guy who specialized in protecting women's rights in divorce. He sent David a lengthy letter about how I was financially abusing her by freezing accounts and how she deserved 50% of everything plus spousal support. David sent back our evidence packet, 200 pages of documented adultery, hidden debt, and financial mismanagement. The other attorney went quiet for 2 weeks. Discovery was a bloodbath. Her lawyer tried to argue that the affair didn't matter because our state was no fault for divorce purposes. David countered that while the divorce itself might be no fault, asset division absolutely could consider misconduct and dissipation of marital assets. Every hotel room charge, every expensive dinner, every gift she'd bought Trevor with our money. David had it itemized, dated, and cross-referenced. He demonstrated that she'd spent over $90,000 of marital funds on her affair over 14 months. Her attorney tried to argue that I'd hidden assets by moving money before filing. David produced bank statements showing every dollar was accounted for and that I'd only protected my separate property and my rightful half of joint assets. The mediation session was 4 hours of her attorney backpedaling. They started by demanding half of everything, including my retirement accounts and spousal support of $4,000 a month. By the end, they were trying to negotiate for her to just keep her car and personal belongings. David leaned back in his chair. My client is willing to offer the following. She keeps her car, her personal clothing and jewelry that wasn't purchased with dissipated funds, and 50% of the remaining marital assets after accounting for her dissipation. That comes to approximately $63,000. She waives any claim to spousal support, the house, his retirement accounts, and any future earnings. She's responsible for half of the marital debt she created. Her attorney looked at her. She looked like she'd been slapped. That's not fair. Fair. David's voice could have cut glass. Fair would be charging her with theft for the hidden accounts. Fair would be making her repay every dollar of the retirement fund she drained. Fair would be my client pursuing a civil suit for fraud. This is mercy. We went to trial. Took 3 days. The judge reviewed everything. The messages, the financial records, the timeline. On day 3, he delivered his ruling. She got her car, her clothes, $40,000 from what was left of our savings, less than the $63,000 we'd offered. She was responsible for the entire $35,000 loan she'd taken out because she couldn't prove it was used for marital purposes. No spousal support, no claim on the house, no claim on my retirement. The boys chose to live with me full-time with visitation rights for her. And because she'd hidden assets and lied during discovery about the separate account, the judge sanctioned her attorney fees, meaning she had to pay part of my legal costs. Yesterday was the final hearing where everything was formalized. We sat in that conference room, her on one side with her attorney, me on the other with David. The judge reviewed the settlement agreement, asked if we both understood the terms, and signed the order. Her attorney leaned over and quietly explained to her that she was walking away with essentially nothing after her debts and legal fees were paid. I smiled. Not a big smile. Not vindictive or cruel. Just a small, satisfied smile of someone who'd played chess while his opponent was playing checkers. She saw it. Her jaw tightened. For a second, I thought she might say something, but her attorney put a hand on her arm. They gathered their papers and left. David and I went out for lunch afterward. Good steakhouse, the kind she used to go to with Trevor, ironically enough. How do you feel? He asked. Like I should have paid more attention to my own life before it fell apart, I said. But also like I handled the aftermath exactly right. You did. A lot of people in your position get emotional, make mistakes, give their spouse time to hide assets or build sympathy. You stayed cold, documented everything, and acted strategically. That's why you're starting over with your finances intact and your kids on your side. I nodded, took a sip of very good whiskey. What happens to her now? She'll survive. She's got a good job. She'll rebuild. But she's going to have to do it without the safety net she thought she had. And she'll have to live with knowing that her choices cost her everything that mattered. The boys are adjusting. They're angry at their mother. More than I expected, honestly. I've tried not to poison them against her, but I also haven't hidden the truth. They're old enough to understand that actions have consequences. Christopher told me last week that his mom tried to explain during a visitation dinner that it was complicated and that relationships are hard. He said he asked her if stealing $90,000 and sleeping with someone else was just complicated relationship stuff. She didn't have an answer. Michael's been quieter about it, processes things internally, but he told me he's glad they're living with me, that the apartment feels more stable than the house ever did in those last few months. I sold the house last month. Too many memories, and I didn't need that much space anymore. Bought a smaller place, 3 bedrooms, good school district. Fresh start. Ran into her at the grocery store 2 weeks ago. First time I'd seen her outside of legal settings since I moved out. She was in the produce section, looking tired. We made eye contact. She opened her mouth like she was going to say something. I turned my cart around and walked the other way. There's nothing left to say. She made choices. I made choices in response. The legal system weighed everything and made its decision. That chapter is closed. Someone asked me recently if I regret how I handled it. If I should have tried counseling or given her a chance to explain before going nuclear with a legal strategy. The answer is no. By the time I found those messages, she'd been lying to my face for 14 months. She'd stolen from our family. She'd built an entire shadow life while I was making dinner and helping with homework and believing we had a partnership. You don't come back from that. You don't work through that level of betrayal. What you do is protect yourself, protect your kids, and make sure that when the dust settles, you're standing on solid ground. I'm 47. I've got 2 great kids who are learning that integrity matters and that actions have consequences. I've got my financial future intact. I've got a fresh start in a new place without the weight of lies suffocating me every day. She's got Trevor, or maybe not. I don't know and don't care. She's got her job. She's got $40,000 that'll be gone after she pays off her debts. She's got visitation rights she rarely uses because the boys don't want to see her. She's got exactly what she earned. And I've got my smile back, the real one, not the performance I wore for those 3 weeks while I was gathering evidence. That smile she saw in the conference room wasn't vindictive. It was relief. Relief that I'd trusted my gut when I saw those messages instead of making excuses. Relief that I'd been smart instead of emotional. Relief that I protected what mattered instead of trying to save something that was already dead. The boys asked me last night if I'd ever get married again. I told them maybe someday, but I wasn't in any hurry. That I was going to take time to really know someone before trusting them with that level of access to my life again. That's smart, Dad, Christopher said. Trust but verify, right? Something like that. Trust but verify. Due diligence. Cold calculation when everything in you wants to scream and break things. That's how you survive betrayal. That's how you win when someone tries to destroy you. She said we could work through it. I said she could work through it alone. And when the legal system agreed with me, when her attorney explained she was getting nothing, I smiled. Because sometimes justice isn't about revenge. It's just about math. She subtracted herself from our marriage with her choices. I subtracted her from my future with mine. The equation balanced. The answer was 0, 0 sympathy, 0 second chances, 0 regrets. I'm starting over at 47, and I'm doing it on my own terms, with my head held high and my finances intact. My boys are learning what it means to have standards and enforce boundaries. We're building something new, something honest. She can work through whatever she needs to work through. Alone, just like I told her she would. And I'll keep smiling about that for a long time to come.